Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain, and I freaking love Steel. I love how they kept our resident Silver Ranger exactly the same aesthetically from Go Busters, because his design is pretty gorgeous. At this point, I'd even say that I love him a fair bit more than his Japanese counterpart in Beat J Stag, although I'm only halfway through Go Busters, so take that with a grain of salt. I love how Steel's larger-than-life walks around like he owns Grid Battle Force persona, puts more of a spotlight on both himself and Nate, and I mostly love the brotherhood that comes with it, although it does feel weirdly forced at times. But, most of all, I love Steel's humor. So much so that I figured why not give this Steely hunk a video mostly all his own. So that's what this video is. Now, let's break it down step by step and go through all the reasons why I, and maybe some of you, think Steel might just be among the best characters we've gotten in years. Here's the thing, guys. Beast Morphers had a bit of a problem early on in its run with regards to focus, which is to say, they wanted to position themselves to discuss things such as the clear repercussions of Morphex technology, but then they forgot to focus on it. They were intentional about making the biggest public naysayers of Morphex and the organization housing it very public figures of large-scale influence, but then they forgot to focus on the effect said public figures have on this world once their opinions clearly change, apropos of absolutely nothing except being proven correct about their suspicions. And the fact that GB has two teenagers currently receiving the old Zane treatment isn't the best look either. But Beast Morphers has found a solution to all of those legitimate complaints, ignoring them for now, something they struggled to do when we only had 3 Rangers suiting up. However, the middle of the season is at its best when it's not just focusing on characters, but doing so through the lens of some surprisingly crafty villain schemes, while our heroes come up with countermeasures, some of which they don't even need yet. The Rangers are building ways to track their enemies, and Roxy, with the power of her billion-dollar smirk, counters that by making a robot specifically designed to disassemble support devices and weapons. And that's to say nothing of Nate's quick thinking that led to Steel's creation in the first place. So the way I see it, that's a pretty solid way to reimagine the special mission foundation of the source material, and all the while maneuvering the show away from its problem areas and highlighting its strengths. And their biggest strength, in my opinion, is Nate and Steel. So, the fact that Steel's early batch of episodes almost exclusively revolve around the two of them adjusting to their novel positions on the team works wonders, even at the expense of abruptly halting the neat character stuff we were just getting into with Devin. I won't say another word on how that ends up resolving though, because that's a big time spoiler for most of us Western viewers. So, to not belabor this particular point, Nate being on active field duty now alongside still doing the science stuff as well as still existing creates this extremely fun dynamic with not just a pair of characters but with the two opposing sides, both of which come off a lot better once 3 Rangers becomes 5. But plot improvement aside, what it really comes down to with Steel is just how dynamic a presence he proves to be all by himself. Devin is a solid Ranger, sure, but everyone else on the team, including Nate to a lesser degree pre-Rangering up, had a very stoic, very stock relationship to the story. I don't think it hampered Nate or Zoe's natural charm all that much, but I'd struggle to call it standout by Ranger standards. And that same writing and direction made it so that Ravi in particular came off worst of all, because he was forced to flatly murmur his way through his biggest bit of emotional focus. Steel doesn't have that concern. He's here to kick ass, tell punny jokes, and look damn good doing it. We've really never had a Ranger quite like him. A Ranger that can come in on day one and pump the exact type of life into a season that the season needs. Antonio maybe fits that billing, but even that's a bit of a stretch. That's the reason that I named this video the way I did. It isn't hyperbole, at least not to me. Beast Morphers had a ton of goodwill built up from its premiere that it kind of coasted on for a bit before things started to slowly pick up. Then, Steel comes in and the feeling changes, the tone changes, and the entire show becomes a really good watch for none of the reasons one might think coming off of its first couple of episodes. I mean hell, even Ben and Betty aren't subject to as much tasteless humor at the expense of a fairly upstanding, hard-working, albeit clumsy pair. Because now, Steel can make the show funny literally any time he wants to. The only thing that feels kind of off-putting at times is the show's over-insistence on Nate and Steel's brotherhood. It's super minor in the grand scheme of things and is barely detracting enough to comment on, but seeing as how Nate did have a very clear, practically family-like connection to the Rangers before this, it feels extra awkward to keep pushing this very specific, very DNA-based kinship to this high of a degree. As far as what is aired in the West, they're the stars of the show right now, full stop. But I don't think that should have to mean that the established trio gets pushed too far to the side, when they could also be cultivating a stronger relationship with the new guys. So far, really only Zoe gets to have that, but not in any way that pushes her character past de facto nurturer, just like many yellows before her. Here's something I find interesting though. PR may have run across this accidentally, but I also think that Steel's half-human nature fits his character very well, given what we've seen from him to this point. It's almost Hitomu-like, ironically enough, where one of Red Buster's big traits was not quite getting it when it came to social cues, and now here's Steel basically doing exactly that type of miss the social memo thing once Ravi finally goes to the dentist. Steel's persona, from the types of jokes that he tells to his unique mannerisms, feels so very genuine to his concept. His actions strike me as this odd, awkward, yet charming attempt for this half-robot to understand humans enough to truly feel like one. And that detail, as much as anything else, sold me on Steel as more than a walking silver punchline delivering the exact types of jokes that I happen to adore. PR has often kind of bumbled and stumbled when it came to the more emotionally laden moments, more so in later years. So it's interesting seeing them utilize that to full effect with Steel, knowing that they can lean on his origins to explain away any weird discrepancies. Like, my man literally just gave himself up to the forces of evil, and the scene was played so matter-of-factly, with some wonky writing to match, that it became unintentionally hilarious. But that's just the thing. That's exactly who Steel is. I never would have guessed coming in that him, and not Devin as much, is who I really want to see the most from, but here we are. Regardless of how human or robotic Steel is, I put genuine on a pretty high pedestal, with this franchise and any franchise. Even with Hasbro caught inside the pressure of this odd, Wild Force-esque halfway house position that Nickelodeon clearly has no intentions of alleviating, we still get genuine. Call me optimistic, but I get the feeling that we'll be just fine when we eventually get to our Americanized Dragon Commander. I won't spoil anything for those of you who haven't seen the episode Real Steel yet, which should hit Western airwaves next weekend, but damn near every single moment in it is basically a microcosm, mostly for better and a little bit for worse, of every single point I've made here. And it features maybe the best Steel line so far in a quickly growing pool of excellent Steel lines. You'll know it when you hear it, trust me on that one. Looking forward a bit, I'll most likely be saving up my full thoughts on everything Beast Morphers Season 1 until the Season 1 finale finally airs out here. And in the meantime, I'll still be working on those writer videos I mentioned before, alongside a few other neat ideas I'm cooking up. I'm really excited about one idea in particular, and I can't wait to share it once I have a better idea of what that project will end up looking like structurally. But until then, thanks for watching.
What are you creeps after?
Only that steely hunk.
Why, thank you.